Hello, livestock friends, and welcome to this edition of Before the Bid. This is a podcast dedicated to the livestock sales industry where we go behind the scenes of the operation and speak straight to the sellers. We discuss topics about the important aspects of their operation, location, the people behind the prep work, and talk about some of the animals that will be offered to you, the prospective buyers. Hopefully, you've got your sale catalog close by. You might have to go look through that pile on your desk. But if not, then you're probably like me and driving down the road or busy with chores around the farm. And that's okay too. Wherever you are and whatever you're doing, I hope you enjoy this segment of Before the Bid. I'm your host, Andy Howell. Welcome, livestock friends, to this edition of Before the Bid. And on this one, we go to the goat world again. And I want to give you just a little bit of my background, and then I'm going to introduce my guests for this podcast. I am in a county that has no stoplights. And so a lot of people think that's out in the middle of nowhere. But my guests on this podcast, they are 10 miles from their nearest neighbor. They've got to go 30 minutes to get to town to get anything. And so these guys are out what some would call in the middle of nowhere in Carlsbad, New Mexico. And so they have been raising goats for quite a few years. And one of them brought the goats in. The other one came from a cattle background. So we're going to talk about that and laugh about that just a bit on this one. And they have a sale coming up on June the 1st, and that one's going to be on Willoughby Sales. And so we're going to talk about the goats that they are going to have in this sale. Got some wethers and some doe kids that they're going to sell and offer to you. And so I want to welcome to the podcast Bill and Mandy Cox, again from Carlsbad, New Mexico. And we've been visiting for a while and talking about some things. And guys, this is a great operation and a great opportunity to own some really nice goats. And so I've had a whole lot of fun talking to these guys. And you know, we talk about New Mexico and we talk about it being hot here in the spring. And Bill, it sounds like you kind of got the nice spot today up in the mountains driving some cattle, right?
Yeah, it was cloudy and it's cool. The wind was blowing. It was like an air conditioner today, so it was very nice. And
It was 95 here, and we were out working sheep and goats out in the heat.
So I was going to say, Bill, you left Mandy down in the heat while you were up in the nice cool mountains, right?
yes,
Yeah, that's cool.
our operation is we run down into the low country up to around 5,800 foot elevation, up into the cedars and the pines. And so the summer times I try to find myself up in the mountains.
Right, right. Still snow? Is it high enough there's still snow up there in the middle of the summer or so?
No, we're not that high.
Okay,
We're high desert.
okay.
On a hot day, there might be 90 degrees, where it's 110 down here
Oh, wow.
at our place.
Okay. And I was right. It's 10 miles to your nearest neighbor. Is that right?
Yes,
Oh my gosh, we thought.
our closest neighbor is 10 miles away, and then it's 32 miles to the nearest town.
Oh wow. So when you guys go, you got to plan well.
Yes.
Yeah.
Go to the bank, go to the feed store, go to the grocery store.
So spend one day and just go into town and take care of all of it, huh?
Yeah, it's
Exactly.
one exhausting day.
Oh wow. Yeah. That yeah, some people are like, "Oh, we live out in the boonies and you know, they get to town in 5 minutes or whatever it is." And you guys are out in the middle of nowhere. That's cool. So, Bill, explain if you would, and we kind of laughed about this a little bit ago. Now, you are a cattle guy, right?
We've always raised cattle,
Okay.
and when I met Mandy and we married, my dowry, she came along with a little handful of goats.
Okay. Okay. And so you just took those right in and said, "Yeah, I can go ahead and do this too."
Yeah, it wasn't that easy.
Oh, you had to talk him into it a little bit, huh?
Yeah.
Okay.
I
Well,
was a little prejudiced on them to begin with. I'll admit.
okay. So now you're kind of growing to them, huh?
I enjoy them now. It's good that the ranch is diversified
Mm-hmm.
and that we can run them.
Mm-hmm.
I enjoy the goats. The goats are pretty smart animals, and
Mm-hmm.
if you can pour water through a fence, you can't keep a goat in.
Right?
They're fun
Yeah.
and learned a lot, and they'll sure teach you patience.
Right. Right. Well, Mandy, if you would go back and tell us a little bit of your goat background, and you guys had a neat story how you got started, and then kind of grew from there. But how did you start out in the goats to bring those into this operation?
Well, I started out showing dairy in high school, and
Mm-hmm.
I still love dairy goats. A really nice udder really gets me excited, but the it's not super feasible out here to run those type of goats.
Mm-hmm.
They go through fences, and I even have trouble with some of these boar goats tearing their bags on barbed wire or things like
Mm-hmm.
that.
Mm-hmm.
But I still had a couple of dairy goats when we got married left over, and my mom and dad had started trying to get started in the full blood industry when they first started coming into the country, 30 some odd years ago.
Mm-hmm.
And we had gotten some semen and started with some half blood boars that my mom just AI'd. And then they ended up buying a few full blood does over in Texas and a buck that had I guess the embryo I'm sure had been imported from New Zealand.
Mm-hmm.
And they didn't stick with it very long. We lived in town and had land outside of town, so it was getting hard on my mom to go out and do everything
Mm-hmm.
out there every day. And we also had like 20 head of milk goats that we were milking twice a day.
Mm-hmm.
So I would go out after work out there and milk 20 head of goats, which we would feed back to the kids because we never ever let a kid suck
Mm-hmm.
on those dairy goats. And
Okay.
it was just got time consuming, and so they had cut way down. And what was left was the few dairy goats I had left and those few full blood.
Okay.
They were wanting to get out, and we had space here to run them, so they dumped them out here and left.
Here you go. We're out of here, right?
Exactly, and I was going, what the heck are y'all doing?
And Bill's going, wait a minute, wait a minute.
You forgot something. Come back.
Right. Okay. So how did you guys get over into the full boar goats then? If came with the dairies.
When the dairy goats showed up and the two full bloods is just let's see what we can raise. Can we raise
Mhm.
something better?
Mhm.
And so we started breeding on them. And the first year, my neighbor had a boar Billy, and I liked him, so I asked to borrow him, and we bred him back over on them milk goats.
Mhm.
And then it was a little bit better than what we had. And we went and bought another Billy goat, and it was a little bit better. And we were always keeping replacement.
Mhm.
We got to where we were at like 15, 16 is
Okay.
where we could register them at. And
Uh-huh. Okay. And now at this time you guys were just kind of raising commercial goats. You
Yeah.
like the goats and you were doing some things with them, but just pretty much commercial, right?
Yes, it was just commercial, and they were kind of I need a little extra money. Let's go down and gather the goats and cut the kids off and go to sell barn.
Uh-huh.
But when you're raising livestock, your goal is to raise better.
Right.
Every year improve.
Right.
We're just quietly raising goats just because,
Mhm.
and about 10 years go into it, and we have some hunters out here at the ranch, and the goats are turned out, and the guys came in and they said, I want to buy some of your kids.
Mhm.
And I looking at them and I'm asking, what in the world for? You want a barbecue goat or what? And they said, no, I want our kids to show them in 4-H and FFA. And I kind of laughed at them. I said, are you serious? And they said, you have really good stock. And
Mhm.
that's what got us into the show side of it.
Mhm.
We sold them some goats and they did really good and they started coming back, and we realized that hey, let's see what we can do with them.
Right. But Bill, you've got a little bit of background in judging and things like that you kind of, I mean, you guys just weren't throwing some goats together. You knew what you were
No,
doing to do that, right?
we did. I judged in high school, and our high school team went on the nationals, and we won nationals, and I got a scholarship to go to South Plains and judge for them, and done really well there. And I mean, we always liked the show side of it, but it wasn't intentional to get into it.
Right.
And then we just took off and went to running, and we're still running with them.
Right. So these guys come along and they say, "Hey, we want some of these show goats," and you're like, "Well, wait a minute, we're now raising show goats," and so that turns it up a notch as far as looking for some genetics and things like that.
It does. And back then we didn't have a lot of money, and so we spent a lot of miles on the wheels turning on the pickups, and to try to find bucks that would improve us that we could afford. And then we get to talking to different people, and because it's an evolving industry, and if you quit evolving, you get stagnant. And if you're not learning, there's always something to learn. There's somebody that's willing to help you if you're willing to listen, get better at it.
Right. So you guys went out and talked to a lot of those guys, and they kind of helped you along, right?
They did. Even today, I have friends that I get to bounce ideas off of. And, where we live, we don't get to see a lot of other people's what they're raising. And some of our friends do. They travel everywhere, and so I'm always quizzing them. Like, how do our goats compare to these goats over here? Or what do we need to do to get better? And listen to what they have to say. And if you like it, go with it. If you don't like it, keep doing what you're doing.
Right. Right.
But it is fun, and the funnest thing is getting to see the kids, the different families, and we have families that's been with us forever.
Right.
Some of our best friends we have met through their kids coming to buy goats, and their kids are long graduated and not showing anymore, and they still, like one of them came yesterday. He was over here. He's a government trapper, and he had to come to Carlsbad for, I don't know why they did it in Carlsbad, to get his ID chip or whatever upgraded. And he's like, I'm going to be close. I'm coming out to look at your goats and sheep.
I'm going to go 30 miles out of my way.
Exactly.
Right. Right. Well, that's awesome.
And his kids have won everything that you can win in the state of New Mexico. And they've been buying out of our barn since his oldest girl now is
25.
And we've known her since she was 9.
Oh, that's great.
And so the relationships that you build,
right,
is worth more than anything. So that's fun. And you never know who's going to drive down that dirt road when it comes time to buy goat.
Right.
And it's exciting to get to watch other people look at what you have.
Right. And to go along with that, how many years ago did those hunters come and say, we want to show these goats? And so how long have you guys been in this show goat business?
Probably we got a little more serious about it when my older son was getting closer to showing age. I want to say he was probably 5 or 6, because my niece at the time wanted to show, and so she started out with our stuff, and now her kids are showing our stuff.
Okay.
I'm gonna say at least 15 years ago.
Yeah.
Okay.
10 to 15. I don't know. It's been a long time.
Right.
He wanted to show too because Ashley was showing, so he would pick out a goat, and they have their little booster show, before the real show, and they go in and you can win a buckle, whatever. They go around a couple of times, and the judge talks to them, and they don't announce that till awards night who wins, but Spivey would cry and cry because Ashley got to spend more time out there than he did. I only got to go around twice, and Ashley got to go around and around and around.
We
Yeah.
were probably about 8 years into breeding them goats
Okay.
before
Before they totally turned your program around again.
before we really started getting serious into raising the club type animal,
Right.
the weather
Yeah,
goat.
we
Right.
slowly started moving over from like full blood genetics
Mhm.
to more weather genetics.
Mhm.
And dairy goats. There's still some nannies down there that we can trace back to 20 years ago.
Mhm. Oh wow, that's neat.
And
Yeah.
some of them nannies are the ones that produce the best kids.
Mhm.
But so when we get a little down and don't think we're where we need to be, we go back and look at pictures from 20 years ago and just laugh and wonder why in the world we ever got into this, because they were not very good.
Uh-huh.
And so it's good to go back and look to see where you were to where you are now.
Right. Who are some
And
of the
back then it wasn't as competitive as it is now.
right?
You know, back when we first started breeding them, they hadn't even really had a goat class at our county fair for that long.
Uh-huh.
And,
So it,
Evolved a lot now.
oh, it
yeah,
has.
it's huge.
Right. Yeah.
When I was younger, we showed lambs. And
Uh-huh.
so one of our deals, since we've been breeding them, I wanted that structure right in them. I wanted that top line right in them. I wanted that hip right in them.
Mhm.
And it took a lot of years from where we started to get to there
Mhm.
with them. I'm a big guy on structure,
Mhm.
and like here at the ranch where we are, it's rough, and them I gotta have them feet and legs right on them nannies to where they can get around and they can be mobile and hustle for a living. And if that structure is not right, then them nannies don't last very long.
Right.
Life's tough out in the West.
Right, and I'm looking at I'm on your Facebook page and I'm looking at a picture you got on Cox Show Goats Facebook page and it's got a picture of the kids, but it is out over the land and man, these goats have got to go some miles to really be able to find something that they can live off of.
They do. The nanny herd now, with the predators being as bad, we pin them at night,
Mhm.
but they'll go 2 to 3 to 4 mile circle every day, making a living.
Wow. So structure is you got to have it. Got to have it.
Your feet and legs got to be right,
Mhm.
but they work for a living. They're not pampered. They don't. Very rarely do they get to see what green looks like.
Mhm. Right. Right. Being out there in that desert, I can imagine. Who did you guys go to genetics for when you guys first decided, hey, we're going to get in this show goat thing and we're going to do some of this? Where did you guys go to get genetics and grow this thing?
We were actually very lucky because a neighbor of ours, and I say neighbor, he was 2 ranches over, Ralph Schaefer and Hugh and Ann Schaefer,
Schaefer Farms, that's his brother.
yeah, his
Mhm.
brother.
Mhm.
And I worked for Ralph, day working for him helping him brand his cattle, and then I done some other work for him.
Mhm.
I called Ralph and said, "Hey, can you help us get better?"
Mhm.
And so he leased us some bucks, and we partnered on some bucks. And one of the neat things is in the weather goat world, you heard of that 191 buck,
Mhm.
and he has really propelled the industry tremendously. I had that buck when he was a
6 months
kid.
old.
Uh-huh.
Ralph sent him down and said, "Hey, try this one out this year."
Oh wow.
And he jump started us. And I called him back and said, "Hey, I want that buck again." He said, "No." He said, "You'll never get him."
Right.
And
Was a
he sold us a handful of does at a really reasonable price too.
Mhm.
hell my whole life I've known Ralph, and I've
Mhm.
worked for his family
Mhm.
off and on through the years. And but Ralph's the one that really kind of got us pointed in the right direction with them.
Okay. And then you guys have found genetics elsewhere as well and brought those in some.
Yes, we got to looking up, always on Facebook and looking at different farms and whatnot.
Mhm.
We found a lady up in Kansas and really liked what she had posted, and so we called her up and started doing business with her for
Couple of years.
a couple of years,
Mm-hmm.
and just friends that we've met and the different breeders,
Mm-hmm.
and just started just upgrading the bucks as we could afford it. We would go and get better genetics.
Mm-hmm.
Where we are now, the like I was telling you earlier, in 20 years, this is the first year that we kept a buck kid because he met all of our criteria, and we are so critical on what has to meet.
Right.
And so we're very excited about him and how he'll tie back into the nanny herd.
Mm-hmm. And you've used that to pick your genetics that you come in, only the best that you guys can find and afford is what you've been using to grow this thing and get better.
Exactly. And as the years go by, you get to go look in different people's pens and whatnot. But
Mm-hmm.
I had one man tell me years ago that you can't just go out and buy any old buck just because he looks good. The genetics have to be tied into your herd.
Mm-hmm.
And I took that to heart.
Right.
And so when we're looking at bucks, we're looking at how does he tie back into the herd. And most of the billies that we have, it's an outcropping of the genetics that we have.
Mm-hmm.
I'm a firm believer that the genetics are. We'll just use blue team because that's just off the top of my head, and they're really raised fantastic animals. But if you don't have blue team genetics, just because that buck is just everything you could dream of, he may not fit your nannies.
Mm-hmm.
And that's just the gamble that we don't want to take, that we go out and we spend a ton of money and then put him on them nannies, and they don't cross well.
Right. Right. Just because they're so far out on that genetic line.
Right.
Right. Right.
Sometimes it works and you pat yourself on the back, and sometimes it don't.
Right. Yeah. So a little bit of risk that we do take in the livestock world, right?
Exactly. And I have it in my head where we want these goats to be,
Mm-hmm.
and so we're still chasing that dream. But if you ever quit evolving, you get stagnant and you get left behind.
Right.
And so we try to evolve every year
Mm-hmm.
and get better. And we're to the point that we got a phone call a couple years ago, or 2 years ago, I guess now, about doing online sales. And I laughed at that guy because I said, how in the world did you find out about us? Because we're in the middle of nowhere. If you don't know about us, if you drive up to the ranch, 90% of the time you're lost.
Right.
He told us, he said, I've been seeing pictures of your goats and people are starting to talk about you.
Uh-huh.
And I'm kind of like a hermit. I don't go anywhere. So it kind of blew my mind.
Right.
And our first reaction was, no, we're not ready. And he said, yes, you are ready.
Uh-huh.
And so we agreed to put a set of goats on, and we sold 8 goats that first round.
Mm-hmm.
And 4 of them goats went into different states and won their shows. And
Awesome.
that,
Or reserved, but
yeah, but
Uh-huh.
they had banners.
we
Uh-huh.
won banners with them.
Wow.
And that was pretty humbling
Uh-huh.
for us. I mean, the kids were calling us and tears were running down your eyes because you didn't think you were ready, and
Right.
they thought you were.
Right. Right. Somebody saw that in you guys and saw that in your program, and away you went, and the success came, right?
It did,
Yeah.
and it's fun. I mean,
Mm-hmm.
it's them late nights in the barn kidding and whatnot. You swear at the end of kidding season you'll never do it again. We're cutting this herd down.
Right.
And then summer comes and the kids are calling and telling you what all they done, and you forget about it and you're happy for them.
Right. Right. So you figure out how you can get some more.
How to get better.
Right. Right. Now, you guys have even sent some, and I thought this was really cool. You guys have even sent some way up north, right?
We shipped 2 goats to Alaska this year.
Wow.
That blew our mind. The young lady called us, told us what she wanted to do. And at first I'm telling her, I don't know, hon. I don't know if it's feasible.
Right?
And so told her, send us some pictures of what's going on up there in Alaska. And she sent us some pictures, and I told her, I said, oh yeah, I think we can work with you, because she wants to go after the state fair.
Uh-huh.
And so we sent her a match pair. And I
Uh-huh.
told her, if we're going to go after one hole, let's try to go after both of them.
Uh-huh.
I'm going to send you a match pair. And so, and then ignorant me, I thought I could just drive to El Paso and kick them goats out and put them on a plane and fly them.
Uh-huh.
And I'd done agreed to, yeah, we'll do this. But we ended up having to go to Phoenix, because that's where you ship animals out of.
Oh, wow.
And we put them goats on an airplane at 8 o'clock in the morning, and at 6 o'clock that evening, they were standing in their pens in Palmer, Alaska.
Oh, wow.
That is probably the furthest we've shipped goats.
Uh-huh. Oh, wow.
And maybe the least travel time.
Yes,
Right.
the least travel time.
Right. Right. Those are high-class goats, right?
Yeah.
Yeah,
I
what do
bet
they?
they were scratching their heads when they got off and seen snow on the ground up there.
Right. That'd be a little bit of weather shock, you think?
Oh, yeah.
No, do they have a first class and a coach for animals?
I don't know, but I do know that the crate that we had to put them in and whatnot, it was more entailed than just showing up and meeting a shipper somewhere and kicking them into their trailers.
Uh-huh.
So next time I might ask a little bit more questions before I put goats on an airplane.
Right. Right. I can understand that.
We're so excited that we got to put goats in Alaska.
Right. Now, have those goats been out at all? Have they shown at all?
No, they're
Maybe in August.
I think their state fair is in August.
Okay.
I don't know what they do up there, if they can jackpot them or if they've got I mean,
Mm-hmm.
it's all new to us.
Mhm.
I've been trying to keep in touch with the young lady and
Mm-hmm.
seeing how they're doing and trying to help her get them fed right
Mm-hmm.
and whatnot.
Because finding good show feed up there is a problem too.
I can understand
There's
that.
not a lot of selection.
Right.
It's a learning experience dealing with the feed that they get
Mm-hmm.
versus the feed that we have in the lower 48.
Right. Well, that's great. You guys are doing that, and you guys have done some favors for some other young people that might not really have enough money to get started and get going.
We do. Every year, we try to find a family that wants to show but can't afford them, or their parents have had a hard time,
Mm-hmm.
because we are all about the kids.
Mm-hmm.
And so we usually will give them kids some goats to get out and to show. And we don't give them our tail end goats. We give them goats that they can go.
A lot of times they're does, but they are very competitive does.
Mm-hmm.
And to get them started. And that's just the way that we can give back as we do better. We want to help the kids, and I have more fun finding them families, and some of them are like us. Like, when you call this one, let's do a podcast, we're going questioning it, and the families are going, why would you do that for us?
Uh-huh.
And I tell them it's because we can.
Right.
We want to.
Right.
We want to see your kids succeed.
Mm-hmm.
And we've been doing this for quite a number of years. And so if we can't find a family, there's somebody that's heard about what we've done, and they'll call us and say, hey, this family over here is struggling or whatnot. Can y'all help them?
Uh-huh.
And it's like, you bet we can.
Right. Oh, that's so great.
First started trying to really getting into the show weathers, we gave goats away just to get them out into the county.
Uh-huh.
And it's just something that we can do to give back.
Mm-hmm.
And it's great fun watching them families succeed
Right.
that we get to help.
Right.
I hope that we never get too big or too outgrown in our pants to remember why we do this.
Mm-hmm.
Because it is for the kids.
Mm-hmm. Well, I think that's awesome. You guys have some young people of your own there at home that are showing, and why don't you introduce them for just a second here, and then we'll get into talking about these goats that are in the sale.
Okay, well, my oldest son he'll be 20 in July, and he started when he was 9.
Mm-hmm.
He showed goats for a lot of years, and probably his last 3 years, he decided he didn't like goats anymore. And he moved over to sheep.
Uh-huh.
And of all the sheep that he loves those darn hard-headed fine wolves.
Uh-huh.
That's what he liked to do, and he did really well with it, but he put his money back every year. He would only use it to buy his next year's animals or whatever, and he has a nice little nest egg he's not going to college. He's interested in becoming a diesel mechanic.
Uh-huh.
So that's what he's doing. He's working for a diesel mechanic shop, but he still helps. We always said that was your college fund, but I guess that's his get going in life fund.
Right.
He can have a down payment for a house or whatever when he decides to do that.
Right.
Probably one of the best goat showers you've ever seen.
Oh, yeah.
But he doesn't like it. And we would fight here at the house. I would tell him, no, you know how to do it. We'd just be fighting. And because he would just lollygag around and halfway do it. But then when he'd get to a show, he'd just turn it on and you'd be like, ooh.
Right. Right.
But he did admit to me the other day that he does miss it.
Uh-huh. Yeah. Well, sometimes it just takes that, doesn't it?
It takes not doing it for a while to realize
Right.
that was a pretty good gig you had.
Right. Okay. And you guys have 2 others, right?
Yeah, my daughter is 15,
Uh-huh.
and she started very early. My kids, the younger 2, since the older ones were showing, they just got drug along to jackpots and had their own animals. So, but she is one that's like, if there's nobody to compete with, she's going to compete with herself.
Uh-huh.
So she spends hours trying to get things perfect, and she's super hard on herself when she doesn't.
She's won the New Mexico State Fair showmanship 2 years in a row.
Oh, wow.
And she shows goats and lambs and has people calling wanting her to show their animals.
Oh, wow.
I give you one story. I called a lady in Kansas on an animal, and she said, I know who you are, and I know who your daughter is.
Uh-huh.
No, you don't. I've never been to that part of Kansas. And she told me, the lady said, your daughter's McKenna Cox, and I've seen her show, and I would love to put anything that you'll let us into her hands.
Uh-huh.
And so that was very humbling, and he talked about a proud parent moment.
Right. Right.
Mr. Feller in Indiana, she had been showing his lambs for a couple of years, and just they kept in touch, and she sent him pictures. And last year he called and he said, I want you to be first in my barn. So he paid for her plane ticket for her and her dad to come up there and go through all of his sheep.
Oh, wow. And that's out here in Indiana?
Yes.
Uh-huh.
It was quite an experience because they went from here in the desert to up there, and it was like 20 degrees below zero and snowing.
We're like froze to death.
Yes. Yes, I can understand that.
But McKenna, she's into it whole hog. And when she decided that she wanted to go after them showmanship buckles, I always told them, I'll be in the barn as long as y'all will be in the barn. And at 10 o'clock at night, she's out there working her animals, and I'm telling her, honey, let's put them up. She said, Daddy, you always told me if I was here, you would be here. And I said, you're right, hon. So, but it's that kind of work and dedication that takes to get into them to win into them winter circles.
Right. Sounds like she's got the drive.
My youngest is just 11, so he's just been doing it for a couple years, like legally. He's been doing jackpot since he was like 4.
Uh-huh.
So, I mean, he thought he was big and doing everything his brother and sister did,
Mm-hmm.
even when he was little. But he's more laid back than the other two, and he wants to do well, and he puts the work in, but he's not as
Competitive.
yeah.
Uh-huh.
Like if somebody beats him, he's just as happy for them as if it was him.
Right. Right. Well, there's the good and the frustrating in that.
There is, and it's not the hardest part is telling the kids that it's okay to get beat.
Right.
Because I don't care who you are at any given show, you can lose.
Right.
And it's a good lesson for the kids.
Mm-hmm.
It's like anything else that you have your good days and your bad days.
Right. Exactly right.
But it also helps when you're trying to sell these, you're raising goats, is to have kids that are fierce out in that show ring and get them stuck.
Yes. Get people paying attention to what you guys have.
They get to asking Kenna, hey, where did you get that goat? She said, well, I raised it. And
Right.
so that helps us get our name out there.
Mm-hmm. Right.
And people starting to pay attention a little bit.
Right. Well, Mandy, I think you kind of got this put on to you, but we've got a sale coming up on Willoughby Sales on June 1st, and you guys are going to offer some goats to go wherever it might be that people want to get them from, and you guys have a couple does and a couple wethers that you're going to offer. And so if you would, let's talk about them, and maybe you can talk about those bucks that they're out of just a bit as we get to those, and let's go down through those. Sound all right?
Okay.
Okay. Well, first we've got let's go through the does first, I guess. We'll go ladies first here, and
Okay.
we got a triplet, the lot 40 or the tag 42 doe, the first one, right?
Mhm. Yes, man, I like her, and that doe raised those triplets pretty well, and I usually like to pull one off of it, but it was kind of later in the kidding season, and I was over it.
Mm-hmm.
So I just let her raise them, and this was kind of the smaller one, so her siblings have already been sold. And now she has finally started picking up, and she is looking super nice. And I'd even thought about keeping her, but we've already pretty well kept our limit this year. So
Uh-huh.
these later goats that were born, they're just kind of in the wrong time frame for our breeding season.
Mm-hmm.
So somebody's going to get a really nice one, and she's going to work in a market class. She'll work in a weather dam class, or you can take her home and put her in your breeding program.
And what's her genetics?
So she's out of a buck we call Meat Cleaver,
Mm-hmm.
and we bought him from Kelly Crystal in Kansas. And his dad is a buck that they raise called Meat Hook, who's out of Stinger, a mini-me, no-step dude. And his mother, our buck's mother, is a Pfeiffer Swagger doe.
Mm-hmm.
And he always has produced some really nice doe kids, a lot of power, and we have kept a ton of them.
Mm-hmm. Okay.
And the mother of that 42 goat is an Easy Money doe.
Okay. They can raise triplets now, right?
Yeah.
Right.
Sometimes you look at them and think, why do they have so many tits? And then you're like, well, sometimes it's handy.
Right.
If 3 of them can get in there.
Right. Right. The tag 56, we've got out of a buck called Top Dog.
Yeah, and he is out of, he's a son to Helms Top Drive.
Okay.
The mom to that doe is out of a buck we bought called Big D. He's out of some 900 stuff. Goofy Raff. We got him, and he was an older buck when we got him, but
Mm-hmm.
we pretty much kept every doe we got out of him.
Mm-hmm.
And they have produced a lot of nice kids.
And now you're going to offer this doe, and this is just her mother's. This is her second crop, right?
Yes, this is her second time to kid, and last year, some of those first timers, I thought I'd just get rid of them, but we had a horrible bout of sore mouth go through, and
Mm-hmm.
for some reason, it showed up on all of those first time mamas udders,
Mm-hmm.
and they kicked those kids off. And if you would have seen them, you would have understood why they kicked them off.
Uh-huh.
But, yeah. So, but this year thing, they did a much better job.
Mm-hmm. Okay. The tag 47, that's a top drive, right?
Yeah, she's out of our top dog buck, who's out of Top Drive.
Uh-huh. Okay.
The mother is a direct daughter of Top Drive, and we brought her in from Kansas. The Crystals were partners on that Top Drive buck for a long time, so we have a lot of his daughters.
Mm-hmm. Okay. So we've basically got a double bred top drive,
Yeah,
right?
yeah, pretty much.
Okay.
Yeah, and it works pretty good. She's super long and level, and she's going to be really pretty. Like, I would really love for somebody to take her to a weather dam class.
Mm-hmm. Okay. Well, good. I got a couple weathers here. You talked about that 56 and how good she was. We got a twin to her here in tag 55.
Yeah, and he's got a lot. They're very similar. They're going to be long, level, correct, big topped. A little green right now, but they've been with their head in the creep feeder for several weeks now, just getting after it. So
Uh-huh.
some of those that, they get older and they just, a lot of the time, it just takes a little bit.
Right. Right. And so this one's ready to come on and coming on and doing well.
Yeah, and they've been completely weaned for a while, and they're eating me out of house and home right now.
Growing and going and ready to go, ready to go be successful for somebody, right?
Yes.
Okay. We got a tag 38. Again, we go back to that meat cleaver.
Yes, and the dam was a Top Drive daughter.
Mm-hmm.
We also bought her from the Crystals, and this is her second time to kid here with us.
Mm-hmm.
And last year, my son showed her buck kid, and he was a later maturing goat, but he was really nice once he got there. It was one of those you can just cruise with, and you can save him for a later show because he's not gonna mature out on you.
Mm-hmm. I like those ones you can bring home and just feed them and watch them grow and go
Yeah,
after
not
it.
have to worry about
Right.
cutting and dieting and
Right. Right. I enjoy those kind personally. We got tag 45. We got a top dog here.
yes, and he is out of a doe of meat cleaver, his dam, and then a doe that we've had for years. She's been a really big producer here. My kids have showed her kids. We've kept probably every doe that came out of that. And this was her first year to kids. So, yeah, a little green. She wasn't quite sure what she was doing at first, but sometimes on those first timers, I'm just happy if they live and they turn out a little bit later maturing. But he's eating good now, and so he's really picking up.
Okay. So again, another one of those goats you can just bring home and
Yes,
keep going,
and he's
right?
going to be kind of a moderate frame goat. It's not going to get huge. I would love to see like a first time kid get him, and he's not going to get too big for him or, overpower him. I think he would just be an easy one for a first timer to take out. And people always have told me to buy animals that fit your kids.
Mm-hmm.
And I guess with my youngest, we finally decided that's true. I know that Kenna, when she was 9, we had her on some 170-pound lambs that, she got them shown, but if they would have really been after it, they could just slide her across the yard as she was bracing them.
Right.
Yeah, I think we finally decided that that's the way to go, is to maybe pick something that's the right size for your kid.
Good philosophy. Good thought there. Yeah, I think a lot of people could they'll hear that and they'll go, huh, maybe we ought to think about that a little more.
These goats that we're putting into the cell, they're greener, but they don't have that milk fat on them. We like to wean them. We like to get them to eating and know that they know how to eat. So when the kids take them home, the goats will put their heads in the feed bucket and they'll go to eating.
Mm-hmm.
My goal is for these goats to be better,
60 days after they leave here,
yes,
then
Mm-hmm.
than what they are the day you get them.
Mm-hmm.
I don't want you to buy them and think, well, that was the best that kid looked was the day that we got him home.
Right.
We want them to be when they're at the end of their show season. If that goat is way better than the day that they brought them home,
Mm-hmm.
so they do know how to eat. They have all their shots and vaccinations.
Mm-hmm.
If they were gonna die, they would die here at the house than in your pens.
Right.
And when you look at this set of goats, they are a little greener than what we like.
Mm-hmm.
But the weather with coming spring and these hot days and cold nights is it's kind of played a little bit of tricks on them.
Mm-hmm.
But these goats will come on. They're big and square over their racks. Their rib shapes are there. Their structure is right. They're straight down their top lines. They're beautiful profiling goats.
Mm-hmm.
Now they need just time and feed,
Uh-huh.
and they will be better than when you got them.
Uh-huh.
And that's one reason why we wean them, so they'll know how to eat, and they're not just on the creep feed and then on their mama as
Right.
they're taken away, and they know how to eat
Mm-hmm.
when they leave here.
Mm-hmm. When they land in Alaska, they're just gonna start eating as soon as they get there, right?
They
they
did,
did.
because I've been staying in touch with that young
Uh-huh.
lady, and I asked her. I think the second day they were there, I said, "Are they eating?" And she said, "Yes, they are eating."
Awesome.
They're having a little bit of trouble with the huge mosquitoes they
Yeah,
have there.
they they had to blanket them straight away because the mosquitoes were out.
Oh wow.
But no, these goats will go home and eat,
Mm-hmm.
and they will thicken up. They
Mm-hmm.
will you will get noticed
Mm-hmm.
with them, and we know our genetics, and we encourage anybody that has any questions to call us, or
Mm-hmm.
if they need us, they have trouble down the road.
Mm-hmm.
Our phones are always open,
Mm-hmm.
and we love to hear feedback on them because that helps us, and then that helps the kids. And if we don't know it, we know somebody that does.
Right. I think that's great.
We just clipped them up yesterday and got them pictured, and we're working on the pictures,
Mm-hmm.
and we'll put them up, probably get the pictures done, and hopefully by next week they'll be up and people can start seeing them.
Mm-hmm. Okay, and they can see them on the podcast video that we're going to put together. If they're not watching that, if they're listening, they can go ahead and go to that.
Yes,
They can go to Willoughby Sales.
And I'll have them posted on my Facebook page too.
yes, and on the Facebook page, and
Mm-hmm.
there are tons of goats on that Facebook page of when we first started and what they look like in the end.
Mm-hmm. Right.
We really like this set of goats that we're putting on, and we think that they can go out and they can get noticed and they can play hard.
Mm-hmm.
If we didn't like them, we wouldn't put them on. We ain't trying to pawn off animals and hope that somebody bites. What we put on for sale is what we would show ourselves.
Uh-huh.
And we don't high grade our own goats
Mm-hmm.
because we want other kids to have the same success that our family has had through the years.
Right.
And
Right.
I get just as excited as another family has won as if we have.
Right.
So
Right. I think that's great. I think that's great. Yeah, and people can go to Cox Show Goats, and they can look at. Oh my gosh, you guys have a whole lot of goats on here, and a whole lot of things on here that they can go see and learn about you guys, learn about the operation, see some of those successes. And like you say, once this comes out, you'll have some pictures on there as well of the goats here that are in the sale here for the June 1st on Willoughby Sales. So want to wish you guys luck with that. I want to thank you guys for joining me here, and I meet so many cool people through this thing, and Brandy and I do just talking to people and getting to know them, and you guys have a very unique story and a unique geography, and I've just really enjoyed talking to you guys and getting this thing put together and learning about you guys and learning about the goats and the genetics that you guys have. So
we thank you for allowing us to be on here. It's truly a blessing, and hopefully we get to reach out to more families and get to meet new friends.
Right. And that's one of the goals behind this podcast is that people can do that and get out there. So we appreciate you guys participating and appreciate your time and getting this thing put together.
Thank you.
All right. Well, guys, again, on Willoughby Sales on June 1st, go down, look for the Cox Show Goats sale, and that will be posted here. If it's not when you're listening yet, it will be posted very shortly. So get a hold of Bill, get a hold of Mandy, and get those information that you need. And again, from Carlsbad, I said that right? Carlsbad?
Yes.
New Mexico.
Carlsbad, New Mexico.
Carlsbad, New Mexico. You got to drive outside of town to get there, but it'll be worth the trip, right?
Yeah, exactly. You won't be disappointed.
All right. Well, guys.
Scenic drive anyway.
Yeah.
Right. Well, guys, we want to thank you, and we want to thank you for listening to another edition of Before the Bid podcast. Thank you for tuning in to this edition of Before the Bid. For more information and to learn more about upcoming podcasts and sales, visit us at beforethebid.podbean.com or Facebook, Twitter, YouTube, and Instagram pages. For information on being a guest on Before the Bid, please email us at beforethebid@gmail.com or one of our social media pages. Remember, that's beforethebid@gmail.com. Happy sales to you, and we will talk to you next time on Before the Bid.